This is the Ecommerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Well, welcome to the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations at Acadia, sitting in today for Julie Spear. Today, we're joined by two familiar voices, our resident experts on all things Prime Day. We have João, who's one of our account managers, a resident Prime Day hype man. So we're excited to speak with him today. And then we also have Dusan, who's a media specialist on our advertising team and a team member that is known for geeking out on Prime Day advertising strategies. If you listen to any of our Prime Day content from the year, João and Dusan are featured heavily. They're frequently the people on our team that we turn to for guidance on how to best approach Prime Day for our clients. And so we're recording this episode midday on Friday the 19th, a mere 36 hours after Prime Day has ended. So the data has just started to settle, but that doesn't mean it's too early to get some initial hot takes from our guests, João and Dusan, and the team generally. So we'll dive in. Welcome, João. Welcome, Dusan. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, all good. Thank you for having us.
All good. Yeah.
Rested, ready to dive in, feeling fresh. I love it. Well, João, maybe we'll start with you then. You, of course, are renowned internally and with our clients for the creativity you put into your Prime Day recaps. We've seen your Formula One Day reports, your Spotify Wrapped reports. Talk to us about your format for this year's report. What's the theme? Why did you choose it?
Yeah, so the theme was all around the Roman Empire and more concretely, and more concretely around the time where Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon. It's a very, the idea came from, so it's a very common place to say like, oh, now we've crossed the Rubicon. That means like there's no turning back, right? Like the die is cast. And it feels a lot like this with Prime Days. Like there, especially if you're a vendor, if you don't get everything right on the day prior to Prime Days, there's no quick fix during the 2 days. Like if you notice something that's wrong for the first hour of PD1, your changes will only be live like in PD2 because that's how Amazon works for some reason. So just also wanted to keep a bit of culture to the, not just fun and games, a bit of culture to this Prime Day reporting. I think
That's great. Yeah, no, I had heard the phrase crossing the Rubicon. I, of course, was ignorant about its origin. So I learned something from your Prime Day recaps. I hope the clients did as well. Yeah, I love that interjection of history into the data. Well, excellent. Let's go ahead and start talking about the data and kind of what we're seeing initially. I've seen a few reports. Adobe had it at around 11% year-on-year growth on average, Prime Day this year to last year. I've talked to a couple of folks at Amazon. They're kind of putting it hesitantly in the sort of 15% range. At the same time, we saw PacView come out with a report that CPCs were up over 70% year on year. So I think, at least from what I'm seeing in the industry, we're seeing some growth, but that growth comes with competition and cost accordingly. And so maybe Dusan, will go to you first. Like, what are you seeing with your clients and talking to the team? Like, do you feel like this Prime Day was performing to expectations? Do you feel like it was underwhelming, did better than you thought? What's your sort of initial take?
Yeah, first of all, I would agree with you because any kind of data that I would find in general for a Prime Day, it says like 11% is growth compared to the last year. And this year was over 14 billions happening like revenue during those 2 days, which is always amazing. And everyone who is participating is definitely like catching a good momentum. What I saw is basically also increase when it comes down to the kind of our brands that we saw increase of almost 63% compared to the last Prime Day. So like we are definitely seeing the progress. We are seeing that sales volume is there. Accounts are growing definitely during the Prime Day. But as you mentioned, yes, so two things are happening each Prime Day. CPC is going up, and it was going up this year as well. And also kind of the efficiency is something that we can say it's going down. So basically we are getting kind of less efficient, but volume that we are generating during the Prime Day of the sales is actually making up for that efficiency slightly going down.
Right. So the volume was worthwhile, but it's still very much a pay to play. If you're going to seize on that volume, you better have the budgets to support it.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Like budgets and something that João is also like expert in it. Promotions is also part of that, to be able to compete for the Prime Day you need to have promotions ready. And of course, like, everything that's going before a Prime Day.
Right. Jean, I'm curious what, you are the sort of promotions expert on the team. You work with a lot of our larger clients. What, like similar to Dusan, where you saw that, the volume was there, but perhaps more competitive. Do you have a different perspective from the clients that you work with? What's your take on Prime Day so far?
Yeah, the initial data is a bit all over the place. And,
Sure.
and I think we're all trying to get our hands around it. For example, if we do a two-folded analysis, so versus July month to date, like the daily average of the most recent period of time, versus, and also a second analysis, which is versus Prime Day last year. So in terms of the promotions, there were a lot of interesting data points here, but I think the most interesting data point that I saw was the difference this year versus last year when it comes to the performance of people who did nothing, like they did not participate with deals. Uh-huh. So last year, there was an increase of around 53% across the clients that we can analyze and the clients that we work with. So those who didn't participate only saw a 50% increase during Prime Days versus the daily average.
Okay,
this
so
year,
people that didn't run promos last year they still saw around a 50% increase day on day with no promos.
Absolutely.
Okay, sure.
This year it's closer to 116%. So like it's double the lift from last year. Granted, a lot of data from Vendor Central is still not available as we speak right now, but it's still something to keep an eye on. As for the promotions, actually versus Prime Days last year, our clients that decided to run a Prime exclusive discount, so seller clients, they saw a 247% jump versus Prime Day last year. That's huge. This is on average across our client book. So the 11, we saw better success, and the overall data would suggest here at Acadia, and I think we all should be very happy with it.
So that is it. I mean, it supports what Dusan's saying, is that like there was a rising tide that lifted all boats, regardless of if you participated, just from the overall volume of shopping. But that said, if you wanted to see the higher end results, if you had invested in Prime exclusive discounts and you're willing to give some of your margin, the upside was there, and saw 200+% growth. So it does seem that this is still a holiday that I think there's a lot of concern from our team, from people in the industry, that there's so many tentpole events at this point that will the consumer get tired of deals, and will we be able to act on it as brands? And it seems like for the moment at least that the people are not getting tired, that they're still buying, they still like the deals, people are still spending on ads, so a win for Amazon. It seems like a win for the customers, win for our clients. Well, so let's go then to the next thing, which is, every time that we approach one of these big tentpole events, I think all of us have some concern or anxiety in the back of our heads of, is everything going to go smoothly? And this year, I know in the later, at least, Pacific time zone times, we saw an outage in the ad console, so Dusan, I'm just wondering, like, what's your take? I think it was maybe, 2 to 3 hours total that we saw things go down. Like, at that point, was shopping sort of dying down? Like, did it have a big impact on things? Were budgets sort of running low already? Or was this something that you saw actually have like a meaningful impact on clients?
Yeah, so definitely that's kind of an issue that you're facing every big event, that ad console is acting weird, but that's something that like you kind of used to, and
plan for it at this point.
Yeah, you plan like something like that is going to happen, and you don't panic, because that's just like what it is, and we continue working. But especially now, what I saw is, at least across like my clients and in general, what we're seeing is that peak time in the Pacific time is definitely like very important. And having like a glitch in the console, it's not very good for us to see, but like you still manage to do everything if you set up everything properly. Like that hour or two, it's not going to kill everything that you done, the whole day before and the preparation for the Prime Day. But just like, it's not nice to see. But definitely, like, we saw a very good impact also in afternoon, and we just work with the glitches. That's it.
Right. So the glitch was late in the day enough, like you knew what your spend was pacing at for the day. You had your, rules running, you had done your optimization. So at that point, it was more just unnerving rather than like a huge impact on performance.
Yeah, I would say definitely, especially like, but I would say from my end is basically morning was showing everything in the ad console, but sales, like always on the big event on Amazon, sales were very late. But then in afternoon, sales start picking up, the speed and getting in the place where they need to be. And then, based of that, you could already kind of prepare the strategy, going forward and increase the budget, the bids wherever it needed. And then just like you can see what you're spending on hourly base or 2 hours, and then like if something happened, that you have prepared budget for like any issues that could be potentially happening on Amazon, and we know it's going to happen.
Yeah. So at least Amazon did us a favor in timing it well this year. Timing it late in the day. Yeah. João, what about your side? Did the promos you expected to run? Did were there any sort of strange glitches from your side, or things go fairly smoothly?
No, for the most of it, everything went smoothly. There were a couple of strange occurrences on the vendor side. Some excuses from Amazon, very creative, such as like there was an issue with the backlog of deals at Amazon. Whatever that
they
means.
Just all got piled up in this.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means, but that deal did not go live. And another client, unfortunately, saw a very strange occurrence with the promotion was not flagged, not a single ASIN was flagged. The promotion didn't run at all during PD1. So we're still trying to figure out why that happened. Like there's nothing wrong anywhere. Like it was set up exactly how it should be. Amazon just decided not to put it live, which is very unfortunate because a full day was lost because of that mistake from Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, it speaks to the importance still of like as much as you'd want things to be all set up in advance, like the day of monitoring and like quick, nimble adjustments by our team and by our clients still is an important part of this whole thing. Okay. Well, I'm curious. There was some kind of new promo types this year. There was some new strategies within AMC. And so in our prior kind of preparing for Prime Day episodes, we talked about a couple of different things that were new this year. João, you'd mentioned, Prime Days later in the month. You're trying to implement a lot of lead-in strategies for your clients so that there's less of a peak in demand, but that we can sort of prepare for that sales in advance and client ranking ahead of time. Dusan, you mentioned a lot of ability with AMC to be more flexible in our targeting and our approach from an advertising perspective. So I'm just curious, generally, like what felt different about Prime Day this year? And maybe we start with you, João, and sort of what you saw play out with your clients. What did you see that made 2024 Prime Day different than years in the past?
Yeah, so if y'all remember, we kind of discussed the leading strategy and how we're going to break it up for this particular event because it was so later in the month. So we started off like from July 1st, and with a client that we were able to have the full strategy implemented, we saw great results. Throughout the month, our daily average kept on rising. So each and every day we were more and more competitive, and that translated into an increase of our BSR steadily throughout the month. So we were in a great position leading in to Prime Days. And then during the actual Prime Days, we had amazing results. So like our growth was through the roof. We're talking about results that were around 6 to 7 times better than last year's Prime Days, 5 to 6 times better than last year's the Big Deal Days. So it was a very successful approach. Of course, the scope was very limited, so we only get to fully implement the strategy in around 4 to 5 clients, but the average are the ones that I just gave you. So that increased BSR throughout the month really put us in a better position organically moving into the event, and we were lucky enough to capitalize on all the opportunities that came our way during the tentpole event.
And so from your perspective, like having it be a little bit later in the month, having that longer lead-in period, like if your clients were able to activate on that with promotions that led up to it, that was something that was beneficial generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just putting into like, I'm also a customer, right? So July, it's Prime Day. So you kind of save up for Prime Days. Like you want to see and you want to hold back to see what deals are to come during the event. And because it was a week later this year, the waiting period was longer, but not necessarily something that changed on customers' minds. So being aggressive and being not necessarily super aggressive, but being competitive during that consideration period all the way to Prime Days really put us in the front seat in order to tackle Prime Days head on and capitalize on all the opportunities, because an improved BSR will helped immensely our organic ranking moving into Prime Days. And so when our deals, mostly PEDs, kicked in, we were highly visible on the platform.
That's excellent. Dusan, what about from your side? Like what you mentioned the AMC targeting strategies, like what sort of things felt different this year than years past for Prime Day?
I would 100% agree with everything that João said. For me, it seems that this Prime Day was better, even if it was later in the month, and with kind of very strong lead-in strategy. Actually, like BSR, what was mentioned is also something that I saw, like kind of seeing a very good progress, turning the lead in and preparing and setting like a good foundation when it comes down to the Prime Day. So like across my clients, I saw extreme success when we have a good lead-in strategy. And then on top of that, like it's coming to the DSP and addition of the AMC, where you can actually have now the custom build audiences. And I think that everything again is coming then to that lead-in period, because you start investing more, you're trying to get, better placement, higher visibility, more people are kind of familiar with your brand. And then it comes down to the AMC, where you can create actually the custom audience based of the people who, either saw, purchase, or add to cart your product or anything from your brand. And then you can utilize that during the Prime Day. And there was kind of a lot of opportunity when it comes down to the DSP, because I'm more fan of a DSP than a sponsored display when it comes down to the audience targeting, because it's more details what you can do when it comes down to the targeting, and there is like much more flexibility and optimization when you're using DSP comparing to the sponsored display. And addition of the AMC is definitely something that's like we mentioned, it's going to be the next level this year. Probably it's going to be the same next year. And I'm expecting like even, higher spend towards audiences, custom audiences created with AMC.
Yeah, both of these things speak to, I mean, if in fact CPCs did rise on average 70% year on year for Prime Day, like the essential elements of both being able to build your organic rank ahead of time, so you're not entirely leveraging media to try to get placement on a tentpole event, and then being more conscientious and targeted with your media spend. So you're not just like going after the largest category term and bidding up for top of search and things and 5xing your bid on the day of, both of those things speak to, unless you just have, an inexhaustible supply of money to put into Prime Day, like you have to be a little more strategic, and that process takes up, a month ahead of time. So yeah, a lot more work, but obviously the reward is there. So it's nice that we're seeing that with our clients. João, one thing that I wanted to ask you was, a lot of your clients are in the CPG space and may or may not be, things that I think when we think Prime Day, we think electronics, we think toys and things like that. But at the same time, customer acquisition is the lifeblood of CPG, and then converting those customers into subscriptions, a critical element as well. So I'm just curious, like, for those CPG clients, how do you approach Prime Day in the idea of like converting people to subscriptions? Did you see those strategies play out? Like, how do you approach that specific client type?
Yeah, one data that we've over the years been collecting, and it's proven true again this year, was subscribe and save based coupons do not work that well during the actual event.
Okay, interesting.
Subscribe and save coupons do work extremely well in the lead up, and especially the lead out periods of Prime Days. So the strategy around, just around Prime Days and the lead in, lead out period for a tentpole event such as Prime Days, the subscribe and save can play a huge part due to the lifetime value that particular offer gets. And in the minds of the customers, it's not necessarily the same thing as purchasing one-off big discount on a tentpole event.
Yeah.
If you're subscribing, you're planning for the long haul. And so it's the same if you're starting today, starting tomorrow, or starting in a week. So getting that promotional incentive from the get-go to help boost your BSR is just smart business.
Right.
Because if then you have the operational capabilities to fulfill the promise that the subscription has, I don't know the English word for it, so maybe we can
actually deliver the goods.
Deliver the goods. Yeah. Sorry, guys, Portuguese. If you can do that can be transformational for your account on Amazon. Because one thing, and I've been lucky enough to have steady clients for almost 3 years now that we've been working on this approach, and the top line revenue growth is so on par with the subscribe and save growth. it's almost uncanny. And so, yeah, I cannot recommend this, like implementing conscientious, intentional strategies to boost your subscribers' performance and utilize Prime days, not the actual days, but the period around it, to one, benefit your own account on the tentpole event, but think on the long run on the lead in and lead out periods.
Right. So, I mean, from a merchandising standpoint, you're still going to stick to the things that you know will like get you deal badging, your Prime exclusive discounts and that sort of thing for the actual days where that's what customers are looking. But in the lead out, where you start to try to get those new customers into subscribers, that's where like a subscribe and save coupon might make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The only exception to that rule is whenever a product is just not interesting for the client and they don't want to enroll it, I try to sneak in a subscribe and save coupon.
It's a little nice
better.
It's
better than nothing. Almost like you can hardly feel it. So.
There you go. That's all it takes. Well, this is a good segue then into my last question, which is, perhaps equally as important as like what you do in the 48 hours of Prime Day is like how you leverage that customer behavior in the weeks to come. And you had mentioned, if I acquire a new customer, maybe I can convert that person into a subscriber with the right merchandising. But it's a larger conversation around, we had this influx of traffic. Hopefully we acquired some new customers by that. But what sort of things are you guys excited or looking to do generally with your clients, starting yesterday and then in the weeks to come to really capitalize on what we saw from Prime Day this year? And Dusan, maybe we start with you for that.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say like when it comes down to that kind of lead out strategy after the Prime Day, like we know based of the history, like usually like those, 1 to 3 days immediately after the Prime Day are usually kind of the slowest Prime days. So what I done is basically, and what is kind of the suggestion is to focus more kind of on branded targeting, protect if someone is looking for you, because going on a non-branded, especially if you have a very huge sales volume during the Prime Day, is it actually worth of going so much, again, investing towards non-branded? That's, I would say, still a question mark, because if you generate a huge sales volume during the Prime Day, you're probably getting better, like we mentioned, BSR. You're getting like also better placements in the search results, sponsored and organic. So maybe decreasing the investment can have the impact on losing that momentum that you have during the Prime Day. So you might also need to increase, but that's also like looking at the data and seeing what each brand is actually telling you, because not everyone is going to work the same. So I would say that there is no kind of the general rule that I would stick to. It's more about watching the data and see what's actually happening. In particular, like what I'm doing is basically just making sure that brand is protected very well, and then utilizing on the targets that we converted during the Prime Day and during the lead-in period, and heavily kind of focus advertising on that part, not expanding too much, on other targets to expand the awareness or anything like that, because we generate a lot of impressions, which is going to equal, awareness during the Prime Day. So let's now focus on what is actually working, and capture that. There is also kind of the idea of when we speak about the lead out, utilizing like either sponsored display, remarketing, which I'm not like a very big fan of it, because I never saw working like extremely well. You capture a couple of sales, but it's not anything significant, that you would say, oh, this is amazing, let's continue doing it. AMC could be potential, especially because this is new addition. So that could be the kind of the way to go tactic in the lead out period, just to try to capture the sales, because you get a very high brand exposure during the Prime Day. Now let's try to catch those people, especially because we know audiences like add to cart, they generally start converting in some point, if you retarget them enough. So maybe after the Prime Day in the lead out period, that should be one thing to test it out. But definitely in the lead out, I would stick with all of these tactics as a test, and then see what's the data going to give you, and then give conclusion based of that. Of course, this is kind of the first year where we are fully utilizing AMC. So kind of this is the first lead out with AMC. So we are still kind of collecting the data, but definitely something to test out.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes this time period exciting, is like you have some new suite of tools each year to try to figure out, like, are these going to be meaningful to my business? AMC, of course, being one of those. Another one I would think of is, audience targeting has generally been the domain of paid media, but now we're seeing with promotions on Amazon more and more with things like brand tailored promos, I can choose an audience that I want to send this promo to versus just, shotgunning it to my entire audience, cart abandoners being one of those. So I'm just curious, João, from your perspective, like any sort of new promo strategies that you're thinking of testing, like what does your lead out strategy look like in general for your clients?
Yeah, so the lead out strategy, it's already been in place. It was a part of the overall strategy, and it's mostly on CPG clients, subscribe and save deals. On non-CPG, we're trying to test out the reorder and save coupons. Try to see the actual lift that we can get from it. But it's a very slow, like 3-4 day sort of a window, just to kind of cool off and take some try to maximize opportunities with latecomers to see if there's still a lingering promo. But the most important thing that we are doing at this particular moment in time is just analyzing, just breaking down data. Prime Big Deal Days comes at you fast, like you blink and you are already right on top of it. Like it doesn't stop until Christmas now, it feels like. So we just need to grind this now, get all the data, and try to get even more granular in our approach for the next event. This is something that we've been consistently doing. So starting with a more wide, more overall philosophy to the strategy, and then we get granular as we get data, because that's the way things need to be. You need data to make good decisions, Jordan. Yeah.
Amen. And then you two are the two to do it. I know we have a blog post coming out soon where we'll do a deeper dive into that data. And of course, lots more good insights to come in the coming weeks. But thank you to both of you for spending time with us today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you for our next big temple event, which, as you said, is sooner than we think. So I'm sure we'll have another good chat on the books. But Dusan, João, really great getting the chance to speak with you. And thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.